Sunlight streams through the bay windows of my parents' formal dining room, catching on crystal glasses like tiny prisms. At 32, I have sat at this table through countless Sunday dinners, each one a masterclass in family obligation. The familiar weight of tradition settles over me as I adjust the burgundy linen napkin on my lap, breathing in the rich aroma of Mom's pot roast. Dad stands at the head of the polished mahogany table, carving the meat with practiced precision, each slice falling perfectly onto the Wedgwood china he reserves for Sunday gatherings. "Just a small piece for me, Dad," I say, watching as he ignores my request and places a generous portion on my plate anyway.
"You need to eat more, Gabrielle,"
he says without looking up.
"You are too thin."
Always have been. I am about to remind him that at 32, after 10 years as a civil engineer, I am perfectly capable of determining my own portion sizes when the front door bursts open. The peaceful tableau shatters as my sister Vanessa sweeps in with her husband Mark and their 3 children. Instantly, the dining room fills with noise, backpacks dropping, children arguing over seats, Mark's heavy footsteps echoing on the hardwood.
"Sorry we're late,"
Vanessa announces without a hint of actual remorse. Her eyes are bright with an unusual excitement that immediately puts me on edge. Traffic was terrible by the outlet mall.
"You went shopping before Sunday dinner?"
I ask, but my question drowns beneath Mom's enthusiastic greeting of her grandchildren. Dad catches Vanessa's eye and nods slightly, a silent exchange that tightens something in my chest. I recognize that look, the conspiratorial glance they have shared for decades, usually right before I discovered I was the only one not included in some family plan.
"Well, we are all here now,"
Mom says, patting the table.
"Charles, finish serving so we can eat while it is hot."
We settle into the familiar rhythm of passing dishes and making small talk. Mom asks about my latest architectural project, though I notice she never actually listens to my answers. Dad quizzes Mark about the stock market with more interest than he has ever shown in my engineering career. The children intermittently whine about the vegetables on their plates while Vanessa checks her phone repeatedly. "So," Vanessa says suddenly, her voice rising above the dining room chatter with practiced timing. "We are moving into your lake house next week. We have got some foundation issues with our place." My fork freezes halfway to my mouth. The green beans I was about to eat suddenly look unappetizing. "What? It is just sitting empty anyway, Gabrielle," Dad says, his tone casual but his eyes watchful. "You are only there on weekends. Seems wasteful for such a large property." "I get the blue bedroom," Vanessa's oldest son announces, bouncing in his chair with excitement. "Mom showed me pictures. It has the best view of the lake." "No fair, Mom said I could have that one," his sister protests, her voice rising to that particular pitch children reserve for perceived injustice. "You can have the yellow room, sweetheart," Vanessa says to her daughter with a smile. "It is bigger anyway." Their argument fades to background noise as realization washes over me like cold water. The children have already picked out bedrooms, they have seen pictures. This was not a spontaneous announcement. This was planned, discussed, and decided before I ever sat down at this table. They have been making arrangements for my property without consulting me, as if my ownership is merely a technicality to be worked around. "Your lake house has plenty of room," Mom adds, as if that settles everything. 5 bedrooms and you only ever use one. And they will not be there forever, just until the foundation work is complete. The numbers flash through my mind with the precision of 10 years analyzing structural engineering problems. $515,000 to purchase the lakeside property 6 years ago when I was 26 and finally had enough saved for a down payment. Another $95,000 in critical renovations and repairs. The custom kitchen with commercial-grade appliances $28,000. The master bathroom renovation $18,000. Property taxes of $14,000 annually. Insurance premiums running $9,000 per year. Maintenance costs averaging $5,000. The new dock and boat lift $32,000. Flood remediation 3 years ago when they were all on a Caribbean cruise, $63,000 in emergency repairs that I handled entirely alone, coordinating contractors while sleeping on a cot in the garage because every room had water damage. That house is more than property to me. It is the place I rebuilt myself after my divorce 2 years ago, where I learned to sleep through the night again without checking locks 3 times, where I finally started breathing again without the weight of betrayal crushing my chest. Every board I refinished, every wall I painted, every decision I made about that house was part of my healing process. "Family needs to help family," Vanessa says, her voice taking on the practice cadence of a speech she has clearly rehearsed multiple times. "We would do the same for you, would you?" The question escapes before I can stop it. Because 3 years ago when the lake house flooded during that terrible storm, I called everyone. You were on a cruise in the Caribbean, remember? Posted photos on social media every day while I was knee-deep in water damage. Mom and Dad were at their timeshare in Florida, too busy with their golf tournament to come home. I spent 14 days managing contractors, salvaging what I could, sleeping on a cot in the garage because every bedroom had water damage. I called you 6 times, Vanessa. You answered once to tell me you would call back, then never did. That was different, Vanessa says dismissively, not even having the grace to look embarrassed. That was an emergency. This is just temporary housing. And your foundation issue is not an emergency. It is only for 7 months until the foundation work is complete, Dad adds, his voice taking on that authoritative tone he uses to shut down objections. Maybe 8, depending on how quickly the contractors can schedule it. Mark has been getting quotes. Mark studies his plate with sudden intense fascination, his discomfort visible in the set of his shoulders. His silence speaks volumes about his involvement in this plan, or perhaps his objections that were overruled. I set my napkin down beside my plate with deliberate care, a quiet gesture that draws everyone's attention. Something shifts inside me, a clarity that feels both surprising and long overdue. My engineering training has taught me to document everything, to build cases with evidence, to never make claims without supporting data. For the first time in this conversation, I am grateful for that methodical nature that Vanessa has always mocked as being too rigid. Gabrielle, you are always so particular about your things, Mom says, dismissing my unspoken objection with a wave of her hand. This is what families do. We share, we help each other through difficult times. This is what families do, Dad adds, his tone sliding into the condescending one he reserves for when he believes someone is being unreasonable. We help each other. You have always been so independent, so focused on your career, sometimes I think you forget what family means. Vanessa's lips curl into an entitled smile that grows as she watches me, sensing another victory in our lifelong pattern. She has always taken, I have always given. Our parents have always facilitated this dynamic, praised her for asking for help while criticizing me for being too self-sufficient. The pattern is so ingrained that they cannot even see it anymore. Not this time. I reach for my handbag hanging on the chair beside me, extract a leather portfolio I prepared specifically for this moment, and place it on the table with a soft thud that somehow carries more weight than the sound suggests. Let me share something with you all, I say, opening the portfolio to reveal a spreadsheet I prepared 2 weeks ago when I first heard whispers of foundation problems through Mom's carefully casual phone calls that were anything but casual. The first page shows 6 years of financial documentation for the lake house. Purchase price, closing costs, renovation expenses, property taxes, insurance premiums, maintenance contracts, utility bills, landscaping services. Every expense meticulously tracked in the color-coded system I developed during my decade of managing infrastructure projects. Red for essential expenses, blue for improvements, green for maintenance, yellow for emergency repairs. $515,000 for purchase. I begin, my finger tracing down the column with the precision of an engineer presenting project specifications. Plus $18,000 in closing costs and fees, $95,000 in critical renovations over the first 3 years. The deck replacement alone was $24,000 because the original was rotting and structurally unsound. The new HVAC system, $38,000 for a high-efficiency model that would last. Hardwood floor restoration after the flood, $21,000. Kitchen renovation, $28,000, both bathrooms completely redone, $36,000 combined. New roof, $19,000. Dad's knife hovers over the roast, suspended in midair. Mom's water glass remains frozen halfway to her lips. Vanessa's smile begins to waver like a candle flame in a draft. Total investment to date in the property, $610,000. Annual carrying costs approximately $28,000 when you factor in property taxes, insurance, utilities that run year-round, lawn service, snow removal, dock maintenance, and the property management company that checks on it during winter. That is over $2,000 per month, every month for 6 years. Not including my time and labor. I flip to the next page with deliberate slowness, letting the impact of those numbers sink in. This page shows a detailed timeline of Vanessa's financial requests over the past 12 years, each one documented with dates, amounts, stated reasons, and actual outcomes. I have been keeping these records since college, never quite sure why, but my engineering training insisted that documentation matters. September 2013, you borrowed $12,000 for Mark's business venture. The gourmet food truck that was supposed to revolutionize lunch service downtown. Never repaid, the business failed after 6 months. December 2015, I co-signed your mortgage when the bank would not approve you independently because of your credit score. You defaulted after 18 months when Mark lost his job. I covered $23,000 in payments before forcing the sale at a loss. March 2018, emergency loan of $8,000 for medical bills after Mason broke his arm, still outstanding. June 2020, I paid for the children's private school tuition when you claimed a temporary cash flow problem, $12,000, never reimbursed, and you kept them in private school on my dime for 2 more years before I finally said no. The silence in the room is absolute. Even the children have stopped arguing, sensing the tension. Mark has gone pale. Vanessa's face cycles through several emotions: shock, anger, defensiveness, settling finally on a brittle kind of defiance. Should I continue? I ask, looking around the table at each face in turn. Because I have documentation going back to your college years, Vanessa. The car I bought you when you were 20 that you totaled without insurance 6 months later. The credit card debt I cleared when you were 22, $14,000 in charges for clothes and restaurants and a vacation to Cancun. The wedding I funded when you overspent your budget by $28,000 because you insisted on having it at that expensive vineyard. The down payment I gave you for your first apartment, $10,000 you swore you would pay back. Worry. I flipped to the next page, the loan to Mark for his cryptocurrency investment, $20,000 that disappeared when the market crashed. The new car I co-signed for in 2022 because yours broke down, but somehow you traded it in a year later for an even more expensive model and stuck me with the remaining payments. The European vacation you charged to the credit card I gave you for emergencies only, $16,000 to visit 8 countries in 3 weeks. That trip was for the children's education. Vanessa protests weakly, but her voice lacks conviction. They were 6, 4, and 2. Mason does not even remember it. Vanessa's face has gone pale. Mark looks like he wants to disappear into his chair, become one with the upholstery. Dad has set down his carving knife entirely, his businessman's brain clearly running calculations. Total financial support over 12 years. I flip to the final page, where a single number sits in bold type at the bottom, circled in red ink. $287,000. None of it repaid despite repeated promises. And that does not include smaller amounts, the hundreds here and there for gas money, grocery money, utility bills, birthday presents for the children that somehow I was always expected to provide because you were having a tight month. I close the portfolio and look directly at Vanessa, meeting her eyes with a steadiness I have never felt before in family confrontations. So no, you cannot move into my lake house, not for 7 months, not for 7 days. Not for 7 hours. That property represents my life's work, my financial security, and my personal sanctuary. You have no claim to it. The explosion I expect does not come immediately. Instead, there is a stunned silence, as if no one can quite process what just happened. I have never in my entire life said no to Vanessa with such finality. I have never produced documentation to support my refusal. I have never laid out the full financial history of her dependence on me. I have always just given in. Allowed myself to be guilt-tripped and manipulated, told myself that this is what good sisters do. You cannot be serious, Vanessa finally says, her voice climbing an octave into that register she uses when she truly cannot believe she is being denied something. We have already given notice at our apartment. The landlord has already rented it to someone else. Where are we supposed to go? I take a sip of water, using the moment to catalog the long history of Vanessa's entitlement flashing through my mind like a slideshow. The time she borrowed my car for a weekend trip to visit friends that stretched into 2 months, and when she finally returned it, the cracked windshield and worn brake pads were apparently my fault for not maintaining it properly. The spare key to my apartment that I discovered she had copied without permission when I came home early one day to find her doing laundry in my basement because she did not want to pay for the laundromat. The tools my ex-husband left behind that disappeared from my garage one at a time until I finally installed a lock. That is not my problem to solve, I say, my voice steadier than I expected it to be. You are 28 years old, Vanessa, Mark is 30, you have a working husband and 3 children. You will figure it out the way every other adult does when they face a housing situation. Gabrielle, Dad sets down his carving knife with more force than necessary, the clatter against the serving platter loud in the quiet room. He abandons all pretense of continuing dinner, his corporate negotiator voice slides into place, the tone he perfected over 30 years in business, the voice he reserves for difficult clients who refuse to see reason. Be reasonable about this. Your sister has 3 children. Your nieces and nephew. And foundation issues, Mom adds, nodding vigorously, her pearls clicking together with the movement. Serious foundation issues. You cannot expect them to live in an unsafe house. What if something happened to the children? How would you live with yourself? I do not expect them to live in an unsafe house, I reply, keeping my voice level. I expect them to find their own housing solution that does not involve appropriating mine without consent. There are apartments, there are rental houses, there are short-term corporate housing options. This is a problem with multiple solutions that do not require me to surrender my property. Vanessa's eyes narrow as she exchanges a glance with Dad. I recognize their silent communication, the same look they shared when I was 18 and discovered they had used my college savings fund to pay for Vanessa's wedding without asking me first. When I found out, they acted like I was being petty for caring about money when my sister's happiness was at stake. I never got that money back. I had to take out student loans. The debt took me 8 years to pay off, but we have already started packing. Vanessa's voice shifts from demanding to desperate, the transition so smooth it would be impressive if I did not recognize it as a practiced manipulation tactic. The moving truck is scheduled for Monday morning. We have boxes everywhere. We have been preparing for weeks. Then I suggest you redirect it to a storage facility or your new address, wherever that might be, I say calmly. Because you will not be moving into my property. This will destroy our relationship, Mom whispers, reaching for Dad's hand in theatrical solidarity, her rings glinting in the sunlight. How can you be so heartless toward your own sister? After everything we have done for you, is this how you repay family loyalty? The statement is so absurd, so perfectly inverted from reality, that I almost laugh. I have given Vanessa $287,000 over 12 years, I say, looking at my mother directly. I paid for her wedding, her cars, her emergencies, her lifestyle choices. I have been her personal bank since she was 16 years old. I think the question is not how I can be heartless, but how much more you all expected me to give before I was allowed to say enough. The rest of dinner dissolves into chaos. Vanessa transitions from desperate pleading to angry tears, her voice rising as she catalogues all the ways I have failed as a sister, as an aunt, as a family member. Mom accuses me of cruelty, of valuing money over people, of becoming hard and cold since my divorce, as if my pain somehow obligates me to give away everything I have. Dad threatens vague consequences about future decisions, about how this will affect family dynamics going forward, about relationships that might never recover. Mark tries to play mediator, suggesting compromises, maybe just 3 months, maybe we could pay rent, maybe we could help with maintenance, each suggestion revealing how little he understands that this is not a negotiation. The children grow increasingly confused and upset, picking up on the adult tension, the oldest starting to cry, because he does not understand why Aunt Gabrielle is being mean about the bedroom he was promised. I stand, collecting my purse and the leather portfolio, tucking it under my arm. I have documentation for everything I stated here, I say, my voice cutting through the noise. If anyone would like copies, I am happy to provide them. I can email PDFs tonight. But my position is final. This is not a negotiation. This is a boundary. Sit down, Gabrielle. Dad's voice hardens into the tone that used to make me comply without question when I was young. We are not finished discussing this. You do not get to drop a bomb like this and just walk out. I am finished, I reply, walking toward the door with measured steps. And yes, I do get to walk out. I am 32 years old, not 12. You do not get to tell me what I can and cannot do anymore. If you walk out that door, do not expect us to forget this, Mom calls after me, her voice sharp with anger. There are consequences for selfishness, Gabrielle. Do not come crying to us when you are old and alone and realize you pushed away everyone who cared about you. I pause at the door, hand on the knob, and turn back to face them. I have been learning to stand alone since my divorce. I learned to handle it. I learned to build a life that does not depend on other people's approval or conditional love. If this is what costs me your affection, then that tells me everything I need to know about what that affection was worth. The front door closes behind me with a soft click that feels more decisive than a slam would have. Outside, the autumn air fills my lungs, crisp and clean after the suffocating atmosphere inside. I walk to my car parked at the curb under the old maple tree that has been there since I was a child. I ignore the dining room curtain twitching as Mom watches me leave, probably already on the phone with Vanessa, plotting their next move. My phone starts ringing before I have even backed out of the driveway. Dad's number. I decline the call without hesitation. Vanessa's number. Decline. Mom's number. Decline. A text from Vanessa appears on the screen, all capital letters, "You are destroying this family." I do not respond. By the time I reach the highway, I have 12 missed calls and 23 text messages. Only when I am alone on the interstate, 20 miles between me and that dining room, do my hands begin to shake against the steering wheel. The adrenaline crash hits hard and sudden. Trembling fingers, shallow breaths. Heart pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat. But beneath the physical reaction, underneath the fear and guilt they spent decades programming into me, my resolve remains steady as structural steel. I pull into a rest stop and sit in the darkening parking lot, watching the sky turn from amber to indigo. My phone continues to light up with calls and increasingly frantic text messages. More from Vanessa, now alternating between rage and desperate pleading. Several from Mom, ranging from disappointed to furious. Even one from Mark, apologetic and asking if we can talk privately. I silence the phone completely and close my eyes, breathing deeply, counting breaths the way my therapist taught me after the divorce. Tomorrow I will call my attorney. I will change the locks on the lake house, all of them, including the gate code. I will update my security system to include cameras and motion sensors. I will notify the local sheriff's office about potential trespassing issues. I will ensure every legal protection is in place. But tonight, I just sit with the knowledge that after 3 decades of being the family solution to every problem, the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who always gives in, I finally said no. And I am still breathing. The week that follows confirms every prediction I made about their response. They do not accept my boundary. They escalate. Monday morning, I drive to the lake house at dawn to find a moving truck already parked at the end of my driveway, unable to get past the gate because I changed the access code at 6 a.m. from my phone. The gate stands closed, a barrier between their expectations and my property. Vanessa stands beside the truck, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing wildly. She is wearing designer sunglasses despite the early hour and overcast sky, her anger visible in every line of her body. When she sees my car approaching, she strides toward me with the confidence of someone who has never been truly denied anything she wanted. "What is this?" she demands, pointing at the closed gate with one manicured finger. "We have been here for an hour. The code does not work. You need to let us in right now." I step out of my car, document folder in hand, dressed in my old work clothes, jeans and a flannel shirt. "No, I do not." "Gabrielle, please." Her voice shifts to pleading so quickly it gives me whiplash. "We have nowhere else to go. Mark lost his job last month. The foundation thing, it is worse than we said. Much worse. The whole house might need to be torn down. We cannot afford repairs and rent somewhere else. We are barely holding on financially." The truth finally emerges, cascading out in a rush of words now that deception has failed. Not minor foundation issues, not a temporary inconvenience. A full financial crisis they expected me to solve by surrendering my property without question, as I always have before. "When did Mark lose his job?" I ask, though I already know the answer will be weeks or months ago, not recently. 6 weeks ago, Vanessa admits, tears starting to form. Real ones this time, I think, though with her it is always hard to tell. "The company downsized. He has been looking but nothing yet. We have been barely holding on. We thought if we could just stay at your place for free for a while, we could save up enough to get back on our feet. The foundation thing is real, but it has been a problem for over a year. We just kept putting off dealing with it because we could not afford it."
So you lied about it being sudden. You lied about the timeline. You planned this whole scenario.
She has the grace to look ashamed, but only briefly. "We knew you would say no if we told you the truth. You have been so different since the divorce. Harder. Not like you used to be. You used to always help us. Since my divorce," she means. "Since I stopped having someone else to consult, to share decisions with, to buffer me from my family's demands. Since I started making choices based solely on what I wanted instead of what would keep the peace. Since I started saying no."
Vanessa,
I say, keeping my voice level and professional, the tone I used in project meetings when contractors tried to cut corners. "I am not your emergency fund. I am not your backup plan. I am not your safety net for poor financial planning. I am your sister, and I love you, but I will not enable this pattern anymore. You are 28 years old. It is time to solve your own problems.
What pattern?
She demands, anger replacing tears with suspicious speed. Helping your sister is a pattern now. Being there for family when they need you is something to criticize. Expecting me to solve every financial crisis you create is a pattern. I open my folder and pull out another spreadsheet, this one showing the timeline I constructed over the past week. Your history of financial mismanagement is well documented. Credit card debt from overspending. Car leases you could not afford but insisted on having. The boat Mark insisted on buying 3 years ago that you could not afford to maintain and finally sold at a loss. Private school tuition when perfectly good public schools were available. Charged to credit cards you could not pay off. Family vacations charged to credit cards at 19% interest. Designer clothes. Expensive restaurants. A lifestyle that consistently exceeded your income. I am not the reason you are in financial trouble. Your choices are. And I am not going to enable those choices anymore by giving you free housing in a property I worked my entire adult life to afford. The moving truck driver approaches cautiously, clearly uncomfortable with the family drama unfolding. Ma'am, he says to Vanessa, we need to either load or leave. I have another job at noon. I am getting charged for the time here. Vanessa looks between me, the gate and the truck, desperation clear on her face. I can see her mental calculations, trying to find an angle, a lever to move me. 1 month, she says finally, voice taking on a reasonable tone. Just let us stay for 1 month while we figure things out. We will look for jobs. We will find a place. We just need 1 month. No. 2 weeks then. Just 2 weeks. That is all we need. No. Gabrielle, please. She is crying again, but I notice she is also checking her phone. Checking to see if her performance is working, already planning her next move. You are being so cruel. What kind of sister does this? What kind of aunt refuses to help her own family? The kind who spent 10 years building a career, saving carefully, investing wisely, and creating security for herself, I say. The kind who paid for her own education with student loans because her college fund was given away. The kind who rebuilt her life after a painful divorce. The kind who is not going to let her life's work become a free solution to someone else's poor planning. The kind who is finally learning that love does not mean allowing yourself to be used. I get back into my car. The moving truck will need to leave, I say through the window. I have already contacted the sheriff's office about potential trespassing. They are aware of the situation and will respond if called. Do not test me on this, Vanessa. I drive through the gate, the metal bars sliding open smoothly at my command, then closing behind me with a solid click. In the rearview mirror I watch Vanessa standing in the road, phone to her ear again, no doubt calling mom and dad for reinforcements, for someone to tell her this cannot be happening. Inside the lake house, I walk through each room methodically, checking that everything is secure. The new smart locks are installed on every door, front, back, and the French doors leading to the deck. The security cameras are operational, 12 of them covering every approach to the house. The motion sensors are active, connected to my phone and the security company. I have transformed my peaceful retreat into a fortress, and I hate that it was necessary, but I learned in engineering that prevention is cheaper than repair. My phone rings. Dad, I consider not answering, then decide it is better to deal with this directly. Let me guess, I say instead of hello. Vanessa called you crying. She is devastated, Gabrielle, absolutely devastated. She says you changed the locks, you have security cameras, you called the police on her. Do you have any idea what you have done? Prevented her from moving into my property without permission? Protected my investment? Established a boundary? Yes, I am aware of what I have done. She has 3 children. His voice is hard, unyielding, the voice he uses on business opponents. Those are your nieces and nephew who might end up homeless because you are too selfish to share a house you barely use anyway. A house that sits empty most of the time while they are living in crisis. I use it every weekend, I correct him, and I have plans for it. But even if I never used it at all, that would not give Vanessa the right to take it without asking. She is not taking it, she is borrowing it temporarily. There is a difference. Without asking, after I explicitly said no. After showing up with a moving truck assuming I would cave, that is not borrowing, Dad, that is taking. In some jurisdictions it is called breaking and entering. In all jurisdictions it is called trespassing when you do it after being told no. Do not be dramatic, Gabrielle. I am being precise, I am an engineer. Precision is what I do. And the precise situation here is that Vanessa has a pattern of financial irresponsibility spanning over a decade. A history of expecting me to solve her problems and absolutely no legal or moral right to my property. There is a long silence on the other end. I can hear him breathing, can hear the sounds of golf on television in the background, can picture him in his study, trying to figure out how to bring me to heel the way he always has before. Then, in a colder voice, he says, "You should know that your mother and I have been discussing our estate plans. We have an appointment with our attorney next week. This kind of selfish behavior, this refusal to help family when they need you, it might factor into those decisions, significantly." The inheritance threat. I expected it, anticipated it, prepared for it. The reality of it still stings, the reduction of our entire relationship to a transaction, an exchange of obedience for money. Dad, my college fund was already given away when I was 18. I have been financially independent ever since. I built my career without family money. I bought my first car, my first house, everything on my own. Your estate decisions are yours to make, but they do not control me. Not anymore. You will regret this, he says, voice tight with anger. When your mother and I are gone and you have alienated your only sister, when you are alone with no one to care what happens to you, you will regret prioritizing property over family. Mark my words. I am not prioritizing property over family, I say, surprised by how calm I sound. I am prioritizing healthy boundaries over enabling dysfunction. I am choosing self-respect over self-sacrifice. There is a difference. I hang up before he can respond, my hands shaking again but my resolve still firm. I knew this would be hard. I knew they would escalate. I knew they would try every manipulation tactic in their considerable arsenal. What I did not know, what I am discovering in real time, is that I can withstand it. The rest of the week brings more pressure. Mom calls repeatedly, leaving voicemails that alternate between guilt-tripping and outright hostility. Vanessa posts vague messages on social media about family betrayal and homelessness. Extended family members I have not heard from in years suddenly reach out, asking if I know about Vanessa's situation, clearly sent as flying monkeys to pressure me into compliance. But I hold firm. I document everything. I save every text, every voicemail, every social media post. My attorney advises me this is wise, that establishing a pattern of harassment will be important if legal action becomes necessary. On Thursday afternoon, I receive a call from my attorney with news that changes everything. "Gabrielle, I need to tell you something about your property," he says, his voice serious in a way that makes my stomach drop. "Whooshy. What is wrong?" "I ran a routine title search as part of updating your security documentation. There is a complication. Your ex-husband, David, his name is still on the deed from when you purchased the property together 6 years ago. The divorce decree gave you sole ownership, but the deed itself was never updated with the county recorder's office." My blood runs cold. What does that mean? Legally, on paper, he still has joint ownership interest even though the divorce decree says otherwise. It is a technicality, but it is a significant one. If he or anyone acting on his behalf wanted to make trouble, they could claim rights to the property until we file a corrective deed. David would not do that. I say automatically. He signed the divorce settlement. He agreed I would keep the house. I am sure he would not, my attorney says carefully. But does Vanessa know about David? Do your parents know where he lives? The implication hits me like a freight train. They could contact David. They could convince him, manipulate him, pay him, whatever it takes to claim his supposed ownership rights. David, who always liked Vanessa better than he liked me. David, who thought I was too focused on my career, too independent, not family-oriented enough. David, who left me for someone who wanted the traditional life he imagined. How fast can we fix this? I ask. I can file a corrective deed tomorrow, but it takes about 10 business days to process through the county. In the meantime, if David filed a claim or gave Vanessa permission to occupy the property as a joint owner, she would have legal grounds to be there, I finish. Possibly. It would be messy. We would have to go to court to enforce the divorce decree over the recorded deed. It could take months. I sit down heavily, looking around my lake house, the sanctuary I built with my own hands and my own money. File the corrective deed first thing tomorrow morning, and check if there have been any inquiries about the property records in the past week. Already did. Your father requested a copy of the deed on Tuesday. Of course he did. That night, I lie awake in my lake house bedroom, staring at the ceiling, running through scenarios. My father has the deed. He knows David's name is on it. It is only a matter of time before they reach out to him, offer him money, spin some story about me being unreasonable. I could call David first, warn him, explain the situation. But we have not spoken since the divorce was finalized 2 years ago. The conversation would be awkward at best, hostile at worst. And if my family has already contacted him, already made their case, would he even listen to me? Or I could wait, let the corrective deed process, hope that 10 business days pass before they make their move. But that feels passive, reactive. Everything in my engineering training rebels against waiting for a disaster instead of preventing it. I make my decision at 3 a.m., sitting up in bed with sudden clarity. I am not going to wait. I am not going to react. I am going to redesign the entire problem. Friday morning, I drive into town and meet with my attorney, my financial advisor, and a commercial real estate consultant I worked with on a project last year. By Friday afternoon, I have a plan. I file an application to rezone the lake house property from R1 residential to C2 commercial mixed use. I register a business entity called Sanctuary Retreats LLC. I draft a comprehensive business plan for a wellness retreat center offering weekend workshops, creative retreats, and small corporate team building events. I hire an architect to draw up conversion plans. I contact a business insurance provider for a commercial property quote. The beauty of it is multi-layered. If David tries to claim ownership, he will be claiming ownership of a commercial property, not the residential lake house he remembers. The divorce decree specifically addressed residential property. The commercial conversion changes the fundamental nature of the asset, and even if a court eventually rules he has some claim, by the time it processes through the legal system, the property will have been transformed. He would owe me for half the renovation costs. The math would not work in his favor. By the time Vanessa calls on Saturday morning, I am ready. Gabrielle, her voice is cold, all pretense of sisterly affection gone. I thought you should know that we have been talking to David. He says his name is still on the deed. He says he might be willing to let us stay there while you two work out your legal issues. David told you that?
I keep my voice neutral, interested.
He is thinking about it. He says he never agreed to give up all rights to the property. He says the divorce was unfair. The lie is so transparent. David signed the settlement agreement. He agreed to everything. But I can hear in her voice that she believes she has won. That she has found the lever to move me. That is interesting, I say calmly. When did you speak with him? Yesterday. Dad found him through LinkedIn. We had a nice long conversation about how unreasonable you have been. And what did David say, exactly? He said he would think about it. He said he might have legal options. He said he would talk to a lawyer. I smile, looking at the commercial rezoning application on my laptop screen, already submitted and stamped with a case number. Well, he should definitely talk to a lawyer. That way he will understand what he is claiming ownership of. What do you mean? I filed for commercial rezoning yesterday. The property is being converted to a wellness retreat center, Sanctuary Retreats LLC. I have a business plan, architectural drawings, contractor estimates, the whole package. The County Planning Commission is reviewing it now. The silence on the other end is profound. You cannot do that, Vanessa finally says, but her voice wavers. I already have. The application is filed. If David wants to claim ownership, he is welcome to claim ownership of a commercial property undergoing major renovation. Of course, as a joint owner, he would be responsible for half the renovation costs. I have estimates ranging from $80,000 to $120,000 for the commercial conversion. His half would be $40,000 to $60,000, plus half of all the improvements I have made since we divorced, another $47,000, and half of the property taxes and insurance I have been paying solely for 2 years, about $46,000. So if he wants to press his claim, he should come prepared to write me a check for about $130,000. You are insane, Vanessa says, her voice rising. You are doing this out of spite. I am doing this because I saw an opportunity to convert a personal property into a business asset with significant tax advantages. The timing is coincidental, no one will believe that. My business plan is dated 3 months ago. My financial advisor has documentation of our conversations about diversifying my investments. The architect I hired has preliminary sketches from 6 weeks ago. The timeline is all documented. This has been in the works since long before your housing crisis emerged. It is not true, of course. I created most of the documentation this week, backdated where possible, created a paper trail that suggests longer planning, but it is good enough, plausible enough, and most importantly filed with the county and therefore part of the official record. David is going to sue you, Vanessa says. He is welcome to try, but his attorney will explain that fighting over a commercial property he never invested in, that has appreciated in value due solely to my improvements, that would require him to pay significant costs if he won, is not a good use of his money, especially when the divorce decree is so clear about the original settlement. I hang up, my hands steady, my breathing calm. I am playing chess while they are playing checkers. Every move I make opens up 3 more options. Every piece I put in place protects 2 others. The weekend passes, I hear nothing from David, which tells me everything. Vanessa's story was either a bluff or David actually spoke to an attorney who explained reality to him. Either way, he is not going to help them. On Monday, my attorney confirms that David's attorney called, asked some questions about the property status, and then said their client would not be pursuing any claims. The corrective deed will process through without opposition. By Tuesday, the commercial rezoning application is approved. The county planner I spoke with is enthusiastic about the wellness retreat concept, says it is exactly the kind of tasteful, low-impact business they want to encourage in that area. I never intended to actually run a wellness retreat center, but the permits are real, the plans are real, the business entity is registered. If I had to follow through, I could. The irony is that the more I research it, the more viable it actually seems. Maybe I will do it, maybe I will keep it as a personal property. The point is that I have options now, and they have none. On Wednesday, I receive an email from Mark, not Vanessa, Mark, Gabrielle. I need to apologize for my part in all of this. Vanessa and I have been living beyond our means for years. Every time things got tight, she would say you would help, you always help, and I went along with it because it was easier than facing our real problems. We have started seeing a financial counselor. We have started being honest about our situation. I am looking for work. We found a small rental we can barely afford, but we are making it work. I am sorry we tried to take advantage of you. I am sorry I did not speak up sooner. You deserved better from us. I read the email 3 times. It is not enough. An apology does not repay $287,000. It does not undo a decade of manipulation, but it is something. It is acknowledgement. It is the beginning of taking responsibility. I write back. I appreciate the apology, Mark. I hope you and Vanessa can build something stable. I am here if you need advice, but not if you need money. That boundary is not negotiable. His response comes an hour later. Understood. Thank you for responding. I will work on being a better husband and father. I will work on earning back your trust, even if it takes years. 3 weeks later, I host a small gathering at the lake house. My attorney, who has become a friend through this process. My financial advisor, who is genuinely impressed by how I turned a crisis into an opportunity. My best friend Sarah, who supported me through my divorce and supported me again through this family conflict. A few colleagues from work who understand what it means to fight for something you built yourself. We stand on the deck, glasses of wine in hand, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. To boundaries, Sarah says, raising her glass. To documentation, my attorney adds with a laugh. To creative problem solving, my financial advisor contributes. To knowing your worth, I say, and we all drink. My phone buzzes, a text from Vanessa. Can we talk? Not about the house, just talk. I look at Sarah, who raises an eyebrow in question. I shrug. Maybe, I text back. Let me think about it. Take your time, Vanessa responds. I will be here when you are ready. It is not much, it is not enough, but it is different from anything she has said before. There is no demand, no manipulation, no assumption that I owe her my time. A week later, I agree to meet her for coffee at a neutral location. She arrives early, looking tired, wearing clothes I recognize from years ago instead of the designer brands she used to favor. She orders regular coffee instead of a $7 latte. "Thank you for meeting me," she says, sitting across from me in the small cafe. "I almost did not. I would not have blamed you." She wraps her hands around her coffee mug. "I have been seeing a therapist. She helped me understand some things about how I have treated you over the years." "What things?" "That I have been entitled, that I have used you, that I have expected you to solve my problems instead of solving them myself, that I have taken advantage of your generosity and your sense of family obligation." She looks up, meets my eyes. "I am not asking you to forgive me. I am not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I am working on being different, being better." "Why now?" I ask. "Why not 5 years ago? 10 years ago?" "Because you finally said no. Because you finally showed me that there were consequences. Because hitting rock bottom financially made me face things I had been avoiding." She pauses. "And because I saw how strong you are, how you built all of that on your own, how you protected yourself when we tried to take it from you, I realized I want to be more like that, more like you." We talk for an hour. I do not promise reconciliation. I do not promise help, but I listen. And when we part, I tell her I am willing to meet again in a month, to see how things are going. It is a start. Maybe it will grow into something healthier. Maybe it will not. But for the first time in our lives, we are meeting as equals instead of as savior and dependent. 6 months later, I am sitting on my deck on a Saturday morning, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over the lake. The water is smooth as glass, reflecting pink and gold light. Birds call to each other from the trees. The air smells of pine and earth and possibilities. The lake house is still mine, fully and legally mine, with a corrected deed filed and recorded. The commercial rezoning is approved but not implemented, held as an option if I ever want to pursue it. The business plan sits in a drawer, surprisingly solid, something I might actually do someday. Vanessa has been making payments. $50 a month deposited without fail. At this rate, it will take her 490 years to repay $287,000. But that is not the point. The point is consistency. The point is effort. The point is acknowledgement that the debt exists. We meet for coffee once a month. The conversations are stilted sometimes, careful, but increasingly honest. She talks about her therapy. I talk about my work. We avoid topics that lead to conflict. We are learning to be sisters without the patterns that defined us for 3 decades. Mom and Dad still think I was too harsh. They mention it occasionally, carefully, testing to see if time has softened me. It has not. But they have started inviting me to Sunday dinners again, and they have stopped assuming I will say yes to everything. Progress is incremental but real. My attorney has become one of my closest friends. Sarah nominated me for a leadership award at work that I won. My financial advisor helped me create a real business plan for the wellness retreat center that I am seriously considering implementing in a few years. The sanctuary I fought for has become more than property. It has become a symbol of what I am willing to fight for, of who I am willing to be, of the life I am willing to claim. On my deck, watching the sunrise, I think about everything that led here, the manipulation I endured, the boundary I finally set, the family conflict I survived, the strength I discovered. I think about the girl I was at 18, whose college fund was given away, the woman I was at 26, buying this property with money I saved dollar by dollar, the wife I was at 30, trying to make a marriage work with someone who wanted me to be smaller, the divorcee I was at 31, learning to build a life alone, the sister I was at 32, finally saying no. And the woman I am now, at 33, who knows her worth. My phone buzzes with a text from Sarah. "Hiking today? Weather is perfect." "Yes," I text back. "Meet you at the trailhead in an hour." I finish my coffee, rinse the mug, lock the house behind me. As I drive away, I glance back at the lake house in my rearview mirror. It stands solid, secure, beautiful, a monument to the truth that loving yourself is not selfish, that protecting what you have built is not cruel, that saying no is sometimes the most loving thing you can do. For yourself and for others who need to learn that they cannot take what is not freely given. The lake house taught me that boundaries are not walls that keep love out, they are foundations that hold everything up. And the strongest structures are built not on obligation, but on choice. I choose this life, I choose this strength, I choose myself. And that choice has made all the difference.